So hello and welcome back to Planet Sports Interviews. I'm your host today, Niamh Mcdermott, and we have another bumper episode in store. Today I am delighted to be joined by Conor Ryan and Phil Simms, who are members of the Trafford MV Rugby Club. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you very much for having us.
No problem.
Thank you. Yes.
You're very welcome. So just to start, I'm going to say to introduce yourselves, tell us who you are and what you have to do within the club. So Conor, do you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely fine. Yeah. Like I said, my name's Conor Ryan. I am the current social secretary for Trafford MV, which has proved itself quite a challenging task. But I've been in and around MV now for the past about 7 to 8 years. So I've been in and out of uni and things like that. But when I came back, I was playing and stuff. So I've been around for about 8 years now.
Brilliant. And then yourself, Phil?
Hi, yes. So I'm Phil Simms. I'm the second team captain at Trafford MV, and I joined the club in 2016 when I moved up to Manchester for work, and I've never looked back. I've been second team captain now for 3 years. It's an absolute pleasure, and fingers crossed we'll get back to actually playing some rugby soon as well.
Fingers crossed. And Conor, would you be able to just tell us a wee bit more about the club?
Yeah, absolutely fine. It's quite a historical club, Mcdermott, when it's been going since 1923. And it's, from what I've gathered, it's kept quite a lot of its core values. As soon as you walk into the club, even when I first started there, I was only 17 when I first went. The tradition and the respect in there was quite obvious. Some of the older members of the more vets and things like that, they were still such a high presence in the club, and they take a very teaching role in the club, I find. They're so welcoming and they'll happily talk to any youngsters, and the stories that you get told, the feeling of the club, you really get that instantly, and that, for me anyway, for the past 8 years or so, that's been something that's really prominent in the club. A lot of the members at the club, they've been there since they were 4 or 5 years old. Some of them go to university, still come back. And that's just the rugby side. We have a cricket team there, we have a football team affiliated, we've got our women's team as well. There's been a lot of growth with the club. The cricket club has been around for a while. The women's team, that's been just over a year now since they've formed. So it's a club that's, as much as it's always been quite large in its local community, it's still somehow growing, and its grasp really has extended its reach over the last few years, I'd say.
Amazing. And like you said, people have been there since they're 4 or 5. It really builds up a close family and close network, a club, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you'll probably agree with your team members as well. But just whenever you're playing rugby matches and rugby training, obviously it's very intense. So how do you feel that intensity?
How do we fuel the intensity?
Yeah.
As Conor was saying, it's a lot of the people at the club have been there since they were children. So it's not just a rugby team for many people. It's an extension of the family. We don't just train twice a week and play on weekends. We also hang out together, socialise, and many people's wives, girlfriends, and on the women's side, boyfriends, girlfriends, etc., hang out together socially. So when we talk about fueling desire to play rugby, it's not just playing rugby, it's seeing your mates, having a great weekend. And for a lot of people, so particularly in times of COVID, that's been one of the things that we've really missed and we're looking forward to getting back to.
Yeah. And like you said, it's the extension of family as well. So once you finish a rugby match, what's the come down? Like, how do you settle your mind when you're going home to your families, your friends, your children, whoever?
Well, usually after a rugby game, there'll be a few drinks had in the clubhouse, which certainly helps to relax and take the edge off some of the particularly bigger hits that you may have taken during the game. So that's a key part of being in a rugby club, is that social element after the game, not only with your own teammates, but also with the opposition. when I go home, I'll usually have a bath because I'll be quite sore. But we are an amateur club, and many people after a game will go home and just see their families, or some of them will even go to work. Some of them work weekends. So people's way of dealing with it is varied.
And that's nice that there kind of isn't just one thing, that everyone does different and you can tell each other what you do and work on that. And like you said, that close-knit family, it's really important. And obviously, like every other sport, you've been massively infected by the pandemic uncontrollably. How have you been able to operate, and what have you been able to do to keep the club running? Maybe Connor, if you want to answer that.
Yes. Obviously, throughout the lockdown, things like that, we've had so many different tiers and levels of lockdowns and stuff like that, and we've had to really adapt and be such a reactive club to how different tiers, whatever we've been put into as a local area. Initially, when it was back in March, April last year, when it was a full lockdown, that was tough. You know, we were advised to only go outside once a day for a walk or one brief bit of exercise. So in terms of the club, for myself, for many people, when it went from you were there 3, 4, maybe 5 times a week to absolutely nothing, it was a dramatic drop off. And quickly we tried to find ways where we could try and either create running clubs, or our coach early on, we tried to set fitness challenges, things like that. And then shortly during the summer months, then when we could start, things were lessening and we could get outside a little bit more. We were able to do small group training on our fields on McPherson Park, and that, personally for me, that really made a huge difference to how we were able to cope with lockdown. Like Phil was saying, with the extended family feel that you have, as soon as you see everyone there again, it makes, even just mentally and psychologically, makes such a big difference. So when we had, even if it was groups of 6 that we had, that was such a huge boost. And we really worked hard to make sure that we were following all the rules, all the guidelines, and ensuring everyone's safety, because, again, reiterating the family feel, there's an automatic, then there's children, wives, and then the extended bit of that. So we always had to play it safe at the same time. During the end of last year, when we were doing a little bit of contact and we were nearly at the promised land of having another game of rugby again, that felt brilliant. Again, we were still trying our best to keep things as clean as possible, sanitizer at the beginning of training, trying not to stay too close, a little bit of social distancing here and there, and it felt brilliant. Whenever we were trying to get together, we were really highlighting, this is the team feel, don't let this slip. We have such a wide range of, almost like a clientele that comes to the club, that you can't, you don't just have one set of people. So the intermingling of the club is so important, and that really showed that when people haven't seen each other for 2-3 months, to then just get together for, even if it was just running up and down the pitch for a little bit, doing a Bronco, it'd kill you, but you'd be so happy to be doing it with your friends. So we really had to focus on just reacting to the government guidelines. The frustrations of not being able to just play rugby was something that we had to come to terms with. We were able to play, touch rugby, things like that, do modified versions of the game that the RFU were allowing. And we did have a really successful tournament, 1 or 2 tournaments back in September. And they brought a lot of happiness back to a lot of people, and made really good days out of those. So we had to be so reactive. We couldn't try, being proactive was quite hard because you never knew what was going to happen. So we really had to, as soon as we got given some rules, guidelines, do what we could with that and just transform the club as best as we could.
So we've got over 60 male registered players across 3 adult male teams. We've also got a vets team and a full complement of minis through to Colts for the under 18s, and over 30 registered women's players as well. So it's a large club, and there's lots of people who are just desperate to see each other. And one thing that I think I've certainly noticed and talked about with several people during the COVID-19 pandemic is not only the positive physical benefits of playing a sport, any sport, but particularly rugby, but also the positive mental health benefits.
Yeah.
In the club, you've got over 100 friends just there every Tuesday, every Thursday, most Saturdays, and we miss them. But we appreciate that. Well, first of all, we're keeping the club going by doing exactly what Connor's been saying, Zoom socials wherever possible as well. But we're all looking forward to getting stuck back in and enjoying the physical and mental benefits of getting back down the rugby club.
Of course, amazing. And has there been any indication at all of when you can resume playing your matches and going back to training as normal?
So before lockdown 3, the RFU was had its own phase or tier system, and the phase that you're in determined what the extent of training that you could do. So it was just individual training in the outset, and then small groups, non-contact training, graduating up towards one-on-one contact, and so on. At the moment, there's been no indication of when we're going to have a return to any sort of sport, let alone full contact rugby. There are murmurs that maybe we'll be looking towards May, but that's best guess at the moment. The RFU understandably is being very careful and looking at the government guidance. Then usually about a week after the government releases its guidance, the RFU brings out its own. So we as a club are making sure that we get that guidance, consider it, analyse it, and then apply it so that we can train, meet and play safely.
Yeah, brilliant. And after the pandemic, how do you think that's going to affect you going forward, going back to training? It's not going to go straight back into normality. There's obviously might be fitness differences, mentality differences. So how do you kind of plan to go forward?
Well, I remember, sorry, remind that. So when we went back to the first phase of contact training just before Christmas, I remember Bill and myself speaking about this quite a lot, about how as much as rugby is such a physical game, the second you take that away for the extended period of time that we had, there would be a transitional period of being physically rugby ready again. And you know, with everyone being so eager to get back in and start playing matches again, we've kind of had to really focus on making sure we don't rush into it and no one gets hurt. So we will obviously train as much as we can, and safety is going to have to be very much at the forefront in terms of technique and things like that, which is something that, you know, when me and Phil talk about getting back to rugby again, it is something that we need to make sure is a priority, because, you know, we don't want things like injuries from people being rusty. We don't want that to happen again. Fitness, we have tried to encourage people to do their individual fitness throughout lockdown. That is obviously a lot harder to maintain than when you've got 3 or 4 sessions a week with your friends, 30, 40 pals playing rugby. So the fitness differences will be they'll be so vast, they'll be all over the place, especially with the age range of players that we have as well. So we will look much like when we did in summer. We tried to get fitness as a mandatory part of every session, so we can at least as a team have one set area of building up fitness together. You know, obviously some people exercise more in their own time than others, but when we get back onto that field, it's very much, you know, we're back in this together now, and we're going to work at it as a team. And as soon as matches and contact become a reality, then we need that physical preparation as well as any kind of mental prep as well. So we are going to have to focus on safety and making sure that we don't really get ahead of ourselves of the excitement of running straight back into a match without potentially being fully prepared for it. So it's going to be a bit of a buzzkill saying that we, you know, let's not rush into a match, but safety is going to be at the forefront of it, really.
Yeah, so whenever we get the green light, which, as you say, Niamh, is we don't know exactly when, and it's going to be a timeline. best guess is anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks between returning to sport and being able to play matches. And that's not just for getting everyone's fitness up to the levels that is required for an 80-minute game, but also rugby, along with several other sports, is very high contact, high tempo. And if we were to just try and play rugby now, you get a significant number of injuries just because your body isn't ready for it straight away. You need to be conditioned. So if the murmurs that we've been talking about around May are right, we'll probably look to have an extended proper pre-season over the summer with a full return back to normal by the start of next season in September. That's what we're hoping for, and we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Of course.
Yeah.
And how do you think you're going to shape up against the rest of your competition as well?
Connor?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm hoping that, with everyone being at quite a similar playing field in terms of allowances of how we could work and things like that, I'm hoping that we will be able to keep up there with the best of us, because as a team, in that period where things were somewhat lesser throughout last year, we really managed to embed the importance of keeping fit and the importance of keeping not just fit, but rugby ready fit. So there was people out there, doing sprints, things like doing more maybe rugby-based exercises. And we're hoping that as soon as we then come back together, we're allowed to come back together as a team and physically train on the same field together, that because of how much we stress the feeling of the team, that doesn't go away, and we really hit the ground running. I know that when we were training just before Christmas and contact was back up and running, there was a short transitional period, but it was almost seamless. It felt like we had rarely been apart, and it felt really, really strong as a team when we were playing. And I rarely see in any of the team that strength in numbers and strength in the bond of the team. I do find that quite a rare thing with Mcdermott. Something that me and myself, it's always kept me, I've never ever wanted to be away from Mcdermott for that feeling. And I think that puts us in an amazing position against other teams. Every team will be so eager to get back to rugby, and we'll do whatever it takes, because, we play it because we love it. We want to get back to it as soon as possible. So every team will be working hard, but I think the feeling of working for one another and making sure that, almost like a no man left behind kind of mantra, that we will just get each other over the line, and that work, that sportsmanship and togetherness of the team really will show through when we can play again, which, like Phil says, is hopefully in the near future.
Brilliant. And how far do you think the team can go then, Phil?
Well, we've got 3 teams, and the plan, as always, is to win each of our 3 leagues, because all 3 teams are in different levels. One thing about COVID-19, I'm sure Connor will agree, is it's been a bit of a leveler. As Connor was saying, everyone's been in the same boat, not really being able to have a proper season this year at all, which gives us actually a great opportunity to build solid foundations of fitness, but also skills over this summer. So yeah, we're going for the win.
Of course. I can feel your hunger and motivation even just through the camera, and you're definitely ready. But just what would you say to people that want to join or play for a rugby team, and why should they join the Trafford MV?
I've played, as most people that play rugby do, as soon as you start playing rugby, whether it be union or league, but union being our sport, as soon as you play it, it's a life-changing sport. And the camaraderie of rugby is something that is rarely seen in any other sport. So I'm such a huge advocate for rugby, for not just being a physically good game, it's a mentally good game, it's a socially good game. It improves almost every aspect of your life when you play rugby. And if anyone was out there looking to play rugby, I would just say that you will not regret giving it a go. it is something that it's had so many positive aspects to my life. Just selfishly saying, I could list millions of people that have said that there's been at least one benefit that rugby has given them, and that is something that you don't find in other sports, I fear. And it's an all-round great sport. And then when you come to Mcdermott itself, it's one of the most welcoming places you'll ever come. Like Phil was saying, with our strings with all the universities, you know, they may not be available every week, but as soon as they are, they're remembered. You know, it's a first name basis. It is like they've never been away. That is one of the most embracing parts of the club. You are guaranteed a warm welcome at Trafford MV, and you are not forgotten if you go away for a while. I went away to Wales for university, came back, and it was like I had never been away. You know, all the higher ups were the same. There were still people there that I'd remembered that I hadn't seen for a few years, and you won't find a warmer welcome. And that off the pitch feeling of welcome to the club, it is, you know, welcome to be here. Here's this. That easily then translates onto the field, and that feeling, you take it onto the pitch, and you automatically want to play so much better and so much harder for that team, because, you know, why wouldn't you want to when it's got so many benefits? And for anyone, like I say, coming to play rugby, you won't regret it. And I'd say exactly the same. If anyone wants to come to play for Trafford MV, you won't regret it. You'll make friends that you'll never see the end of. You will meet people that you probably never will have done. You roll in different circles that you think you would have originally thought you would have done. And it will, you know, it changes everything. It changes your mentality towards life. It changes your mentality towards sport. And the friendship groups of Mcdermott are something that are so prominent throughout it. And like I say, the positives are endless. But I always say give rugby a go. I'm such a huge salesperson for rugby, and then I love Mcdermott as well. So I will push. I always push for rugby first, but then if anyone's close enough, then I push for Mcdermott and say you won't regret it coming here, and you know, hopefully reap the benefits in the future.
And I can echo what Connor's saying with my own personal experience. As I mentioned at the beginning, I moved up to Manchester for work in 2016. I moved in on the Friday, and on Saturday I thought, I'll go and try and find a rugby club. And within that first day, that first match, I'd made friends, and I've never looked back. It is some of my best friends now at the rugby club. So yes, for all the reasons Connor's said, give rugby a go. It's fantastic, both physically and mentally. But also Trafford is, well, it's been fantastic for me, and I know it will be for any of your viewers who wish to give it a go.
Of course, and just maybe yourself, Connor, you'll be able to answer this. If someone's looking to join your rugby club, where can they find you, or how can they sign up?
We have, just as a club, we have quite a high social media presence. Our social media officer, John, he's so on the ball, and he's one of the most approachable people in the world. You will find us on Facebook. You'll most likely find us, well, any social media presence. We have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Our names will be there. We are usually Trafford MV Rugby Club, or then you've got the Cricket Club as well. You'll find those pages, and in those pages you'll have either the main secretary's contact details or our social media presence, John. He's usually the first port of call for everyone, and he then knows who to put you in contact with. We're so easy to find. Like I say, search for Trafford MV on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You will find that presence. Even for the women's team, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you'll see it there. And you automatically get bled into the team, and you probably won't look back.
Okay, super. We'll probably drop your social media just on the screen now, and hopefully John will be getting loads of messages. Just a final question to the both of you. Clearly, this is really tough times for your fans who always go and watch your matches, your extended family, and your teammates. Do you have any words of motivation to kind of say, just hold on in there, we'll see you soon. Hopefully we'll see you in the next season, whenever it is. Connor, do you want to go first?
Yeah. to the fans, we miss playing. I mean, we played for the love of the game, but when having people there is an unbelievable feeling for motivation. So we miss having people there. We miss fans, and Six Nations has begun again, so fanship's high in the air for rugby itself. But we can't wait to be back on the pitch and have people screaming again, and hearing that motivation. We miss it, and we miss we miss you fans. It is, and it's such an important part of the game. So yeah, we can't wait for it to be back, and we miss it.
Great. And yourself, Will?
I absolutely echo what Connor's been saying. Rugby with supporters on a Saturday morning is something that we look forward to genuinely for the entirety of the week. It can't be much longer now. We sincerely hope that's right. And in the not too distant future, we'll be able to have everyone back down at the club. It's going to be fantastic. We've just got to hold out for a little bit longer. Anyone who comes and watch our games, we absolutely love having you there. And in the very near future, we look forward to seeing you and then sharing a beer with you afterwards.
Of course. So hopefully you'll able to get at least the end of that at least. But thank you, gents, so much. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you to Phil and Connor. You've been amazing, and I really enjoyed that. So hopefully everyone else enjoyed that too, and they will be contacting John so they can join the Trafford MV. We enjoyed having you here, and hopefully we will see you next time. Goodbye.